Good morning, dear friends and colleagues. On behalf of A4, I would like to kindly welcome you in the second day of our online seminar, The Role of Culture Centers as Sites of Informal Education. I am delighted to host this virtual seminar from A4 Contemporary Culture Center located in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. We are very pleased that you are able to participate here also the second day. My name is Nadia Uherova and I'm an acting coach, lecturer and consultant for this seminar. I will be here to facilitate also the second day of this seminar. Overall theme of our seminar is exploring the role of culture centers as sites of informal education. This seminar is a part of Spotting platform, Spaces of Transformation in Arts Education, brings together arts educators from 8 culture centers around Europe. This seminar is a part of Spotting project and it is co-funded by Erasmus Plus program, Arts Councils and other partners that supported us are PDCS, sli.do, Totem and Evergreen Garden. Now, let me give you a few technical information which we have also said yesterday. We are going to use Zoom platform, so please use your full name as your Zoom name or the name of your institution. All participants would be initially muted. The chat box in a Zoom will be closed, but if you have any questions for the speakers, please submit them in a sli.do. If you have any technical problems, please use the chat box on A4 website to contact our technical support team. All speeches and presentations will be live streamed on YouTube, A4 TV and Facebook. All presentations will be also available in A4 TV on YouTube after seminar. So you can share it with your colleagues and friends. They can also send the questions to our speakers by sli.do. We would like to remind you of our Padlet whiteboard. If you want to share a message with other participants, it is going to be open and available until the end of the seminar. And now, we would like to use this opportunity to invite you to the next Trans-Europe Health Camp meeting. The camp meetings are a place mainly for TEH members and associated to reflect on and discuss the most relevant issues appearing in our societies, to present their projects and look for partners, to look and discover new practices. It will take place in the Cultural Center Nová Cvernovka in Bratislava in the beginning of the October 2021. And now, I would like to say you a few words about A4, our culture center. A4 organize and welcome more than 300 culture, art and social events per year. Theater and dance performances, movie screenings, concerts, discussions, exhibitions, lectures, presentations, workshops and other educational activities. It is a proud home of the theater company Skrat, the Festival of Experimental Music Next, and the Festival of Device Theater Proteza. Moreover, it is open to co-organizing cultural events and festivals with other authors and groups. A4 is a founding member of network of Slovak Independent Culture Centers Antenna, member of the European Network Organization Trans-Europe Hall, and it initialized platform for Bratislava grassroots culture organization Skuba Kultúrna Bratislava. We would like to direct your attention to A4 TV, a video channel made by A4. It presents performances, talks and interviews with some of the most inspiring and groundbreaking artists of today, as well as reports from various workshops and other activities of A4, Space for Contemporary Culture. Yesterday, we have seen 3 interesting case studies about Spotting project, education of targeted audience groups and communities, and also about business model in education. We introduce each other in the breakout rooms and discuss interesting topics with our speakers. In the evening, we enjoyed concert of Eric Panchi, and it was a great day. Today, in the morning, we will listen to our keynote speaker, Francois Matarazzo, This will be followed by 5 thorough case studies, lunch, and a World Cafe-style discussion. We also have a beautiful short Slovak movie available for you to watch after the lunch break. We have a lot to go through. And now, without any further delay, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Francois Matarazzo. He is a freelance community artist, writer, and researcher. Using a case study from an ongoing EU-funded research project, he will talk about the ways that participatory art can support informal education. Although it is too early to report progress, the focus of the talk will be led on a novel framework being proposed to understand personal and social change. I trust that you will find interesting topics also today and you are eager to get started. I hope you will enjoy also the second day of the seminar and delve deeply into the topics of the speakers. Enjoy, and don't forget to send us a question to our speaker in the sli.do. And now I would like to invite and hand over to our keynote speaker, Francois Matarazzo. Francois, welcome. The space is yours.
Sorry, thank you very much. I'm going to try and share my screen now. Let's see if this will work. Yes, okay. Okay, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. It's a pleasure to do so. It's just a pity that I can't do so from Bratislava. So I'm going to talk about the relationship between culture and education, excuse me, and participatory art. And I will come to how the Traction project, which I'm part of, is trying to resolve some of the issues around that. But first, I want to take you through the thinking that that outlines why there are issues that I think need to be resolved. So let me begin, as so much in European culture begins, with the classical roots. I think it's important because we have inherited many beliefs about the relationship between culture and education. And this is a quote from Cicero, who's very clear that the idea of a systematic training in cultural knowledge is important to human development. And in many ways, I don't disagree with that, but I think it's an idea which we have inherited. It's in the very idea of the word to be cultured, but it's a complicated idea that demands some investigation and questioning. I wanted to talk briefly about how that idea has shaped the modern world. And although this slide says a timeline of cultural education in Europe, I'm really only concerned with the modern world, the industrial world. And because it's the world that came into being partly because of and associated with the Enlightenment and its new ideas about culture, among many other things. There are three kind of phases that I want to touch on. So with the emergence of the industrial society in parts of Europe, we have an idea that civilization is something that can be achieved through culture. And that leads to the establishment of city museums and art galleries and things of that kind. It also has a much darker side, with the idea that colonialism, European colonialism, is a civilizing mission for the rest of the world that justifies the violence of colonialism. Alongside that, there is an alternative, and in each of these phases, I want to suggest that there is a dominant way of thinking and a subversive way of thinking. From the 1830s onwards, right through, I mean, all of these dates are very approximate, but right through until the Second World War, there are movements of working people to seek emancipation through education and culture. And the movement of mechanics institutes, working people's libraries, cultural associations, amateur drama and theatre, choirs, and all of these things are a recognition by people who are at the bottom of the social ladder that education and culture are a way to change their situation and their conditions. In the post-war period, we of course have across Europe the development of welfare states in both communist and capitalist societies, alternative welfare states. And education and culture are an integral part of that welfare state. But, and we'll come on to this, it creates two alternative visions of cultural policy. The welfare state and its provision of culture and education led in the 1960s to a radical challenge that said the challenge consisted of again, the idea that to some extent the civilizing mission, excuse me, the civilizing mission had been carried through into the welfare state, which could be very paternalistic in terms of educating people into a set of social and cultural norms. The community art movement was a reaction against that, among others. There were many cultural reactions to that paternalism, and again sought to emancipate people through access to education, popular education and culture, but crucially to recognize the cultural values that people already had and the legitimacy of the grassroots forms of artistic and cultural expression. From the 1990s to today, we have a fragmentation and in some cases a direct assault on the idea of the welfare state, a fragmentation of growing individualization, and a handing over to neoliberal marketization of many of the systems that had been set up in the post-war period. And that has led to considerable uncertainties. There is again, I think, a reaction to that in grassroots activism and participatory art. These, I don't want to say too much about what's happening now because it is still current and it's difficult to understand and to be certain quite what the meaning and the patterns that are evolving are. But I think what I would like you to hold on to is this two visions of the relationship of culture and education, either as something to be passed on and to be acquired by people, or as something that is more critical and inquiring and self-determined. And that alternative is very clear in the writing and thinking of this person, Paulo Freire, who many of you will know and be familiar with, who contrasted, he's a Brazilian philosopher and educationalist, who published a book in the 1969, the English translation in 1970, called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and laid the foundation for many people working in radical education and community art. He contrasted a form of education as instruction, what he called the banking concept of education, which was essentially about filling students up with resources, and crucially seeing students as empty vessels, much as the colonial project could describe Australia as terra nullius, an empty land, and therefore legitimate for seizure by the British state. So in what Freire calls the banking concept of education, students are simply blank pages on which the educationalist can inscribe their knowledge. The parallel, I think, in cultural terms, is the policy of cultural democratization, or more brutally in the past, the civilizing mission. The idea that culture is a fixed thing and a good thing, which simply needs to be made accessible and available to people in order for them to become fully mature citizens. This is an example of one of the great projects in that spirit, El Sistema, the Venezuelan system of classical music education that has been in place for several decades now. But Freire offers an alternative, which is the idea of education as a form of investigation that poses problems and that sees human beings as in the process of becoming. We're not finished. We're uncompleted beings in a likewise unfinished reality. So culture is not a fixed thing which you then simply learn about and imbibe, and you read the classics and you then have banked the knowledge that they have and become a cultured person. Instead, for Freire, the unfinished character of human beings and the transformational character of reality necessitate that education is an ongoing activity. And in more recent terms, that might be considered in the sense of lifelong learning, that we never stop learning, and we never stop learning together and participating and shaping reality, shaping knowledge, because of the way we shape our understanding. And the alternative, the contrast in terms of cultural policy terms, the contrast with the cultural democratization, the idea that emerged in the 1970s as cultural democracy, one which recognizes an equality between people, which I think is captured in this image from a French project called Banlieue Bleue, where you can see the New York musician, poet, and rapper Napoleon Maddox with a young adolescent from Clichy-sous-Bois near Paris, who are working together on a beautiful musical performance, which I saw 2 or 3 years ago. And the image for me captures the sense of equality, the sense of emerging trust, the giving and the taking on both sides, and the possibility of creating new forms of understanding and reality from that interaction of culture that is respectful of what each person can bring into that engagement. Now, I have sometimes described this spectrum between cultural of policy between cultural democratization and cultural democracy in these terms, and this is a simplification, but On the one hand, you can see cultural democratization as a parallel to the idea of education as a form of instruction. On the other hand, cultural democracy as education as a form of investigation. And between these territories, there is a field of participatory art where the language, the rhetoric of transformation is often used. One of the things that I want to do in the rest of this talk is to unpick what we might mean by education, how by transformation, how real it is, and by what processes it might be able to be achieved. Now, I think there are some fundamental flaws in the existing ideas of cultural education, and specifically in the way cultural democratization operates. Flaws that are inherited from that original vision that Cicero outlined, that you can train somebody through culture to become a more civilized person. The first flaw for me is that it is ethically unacceptable, because it envisages the person who is receiving education as being passive, as somebody that the person who is providing the education or the culture is able to and entitled to change. And a great deal of the rhetoric around participatory art is about social change today and about its transformative potential. But it doesn't ask the question of by what right is one person or one institution or one authority entitled to seek to change citizens or members of society, particularly when that change is not clear. At least in education, when you go to school, you know that you are going to learn something. That's the purpose of the institution. But very often, culture is offered as an enjoyable and rewarding thing, not as something which is set up to change you. So there is a real risk of a masked or hidden agenda where certain people feel that they are able and justified in trying to improve the lives of other people without any of that being clear to the people concerned. So for me, there are fundamental ethical problems about this way of approaching it. Secondly, I think that in policy terms, it is politically incoherent. One of the consequences of this work is that there is an enormous burden of evaluation placed on participatory art projects, which are required by their funders to demonstrate the social impact, the social benefit, the social transformation that they have achieved. I have never yet been asked to fill in a questionnaire after going to the theatre or the opera in order to explain or justify how I may have improved my skills or made new friendships or enhanced my health and well-being as a result of attending the opera. But I have recently been running a creative writing workshop for an organization which has, because of the demands of the funder, needed to ask the participants in that creative writing workshop how their well-being has been improved by taking part. So there is an unjustifiable division between cultural provision, which is given without strings attached, largely to the middle classes and to the elites, who are presumably thought to be sufficiently socially transformed not to need it, and cultural provision which is given to the poor and disenfranchised in order for them to be in some often unexplained way improved or transformed by the experience. Even if those first two flaws were resolved, there is an underlying fundamental flaw, which is simply that it doesn't work. You cannot, no artist, no cultural institution can produce a cultural experience and guarantee what effect that experience will have on other people. Otherwise, it would be very easy to compose a song and have a hit record with it. The truth is that we bring ourselves to every cultural experience we have, and consequently, it is always a dialogic experience, an experience between the creator, and I prefer not to use the word audience or participant, but the creator and the recreator. Because if I read a book, I am recreating what the writer of the book has imagined, and I'm filtering it through my own imagination and taking from it what is meaningful to me. The same is true of a theatre performance, of an art workshop, of a musical concert, anything you can imagine. And that is why, if you take two teenagers to see their first performance of a great classic production, Shakespeare or Goethe or something, afterwards you may find you have had two fundamentally different experiences. One will come out and say, that was extraordinary, I want to go to drama school, I now know what I want to do with my life. And the other one will come out and say, and say they'll never speak to you again if you ever inflict 2 hours of such tedium on them again. But also, what then happens to them in their lives may be very different. And it may well be that the teenager who goes to art school will be working in telesales 10 years later, and the other teenager may be a keen poet and amateur musician. Who knows? My point is that these are not controllable outcomes, and no amount of funding, no cultural policy, no artist can engineer experiences knowing how people will respond to them. So I'm going to move on to how we might find a solution to these dilemmas. But the first thing that I want to say is that the starting point for this is that cultural participation is a human right. It is not something that is done or should be done to people in order to change them. And I just should acknowledge this image, which is from a group called Intangible Arts in Southeast London, who are a wonderful autonomous and very creative group of artists. And I love this image simply because it speaks to me about cultural participation being a human right. What do I mean when I say that? It's a big claim to make. It is, of course, a human right as Article 27 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement. It's the first part of that sentence that matters to me: freely to participate in the cultural life of the community and to enjoy the arts. The two things are separate. Participating in the cultural life of the community means that you have the right to make art, not just to enjoy it, that you have the right to participate actively. And it's that participation I want to talk about and explain, and its relationship with culture and education. I want to do that through the framework of the Traction Project, which I mentioned and I'm working on. The Traction Project is a 3-year EU-funded project through the Horizon 2020 research program, which is looking at opera creation and production, immersive and interacting digital media, and social integration and community development. In short, what it is, Traction is asking, how can opera in the 21st century renew itself, potentially using immersive and interacting digital media, in order to strengthen social integration and community development? How can co-creation in opera, as in the language of the project, I would prefer participatory art, but how can co-creation in opera contribute to social transformation? It's the answer to that question that I want to try and outline to you. But before I do, I need to explain that there are 3 community projects, community opera projects happening that are very different in scale and purpose and nature. One is with the Theatre of the Liceu in Barcelona, a 170-year-old grand opera house, as you can see. This photograph was taken at the public launch of the project. The opera house is working on a project called Opera Prima Raval, in which they are trying to create a grand opera, which will take place on that stage. It was due to take place in autumn 2021, but with the pandemic, it's been put back a year. With the neighbours of the opera house, the people who live in the neighbourhood of Raval, where the Liceu Theatre is. And they want to tell the stories of people from that neighbourhood and have some of those people involved in performing on stage with professional artists and involved in costume design and other aspects of the production. The second project is in a town called Leiria in Portugal, and it is a project that they have been working on for several years. I saw this was the finale of a performance of Don Giovanni in the prison of Leiria, which I saw in 2015. Having performed 2 Mozart operas with the prisoners, the young inmates of the prison in Leiria, they're now working on a community opera composed with the inmates, but also with their families and relatives, and which will be a performance that takes place partly inside the prison and partly outside the prison, connected by digital technology. And in terms of social transformation, the ambition of this project is to change the conditions for education and artistic activity within the prison service, not just in Leiria, but across Portugal. Finally, Irish National Opera are working on a virtual reality opera involving 3 communities: an Irish language speaking community in the far west of Ireland, in the Aran Islands, young people living in rural Ireland, some of whom you can see in this image from the Zoom workshops, which are now having to happen because we're not able to meet face to face, and a community on the outskirts of Dublin called Tala. And these 3 communities are working together online using the digital technology to work on an opera which will only exist in virtual reality, and you will experience through a headset, a virtual reality headset. But how can all this turn into, how can it support, how can it support social transformation? What is the relationship between culture and education in this project? In the original outline of the project, it was anticipated that participants would benefit from some vocational training. But as the project has developed, it's become clear that that is not the right way to think about this. It's not the right approach. We need to think much more in terms of informal education, particularly because the people who are involved, who include not only the people that I've mentioned, but in Barcelona, people from the neighborhood, including disabled people and others who are at risk of social exclusion. The vocational training is too formal, too structured a way for them to be involved in the project at this stage. So we have taken the European Union's own definition of informal education, which is learning resulting from daily activities related to work, family, or leisure, which is not organized or structured in terms of objectives, time, or learning support. It may be unintentional from the learner's perspective. And that, I think, is a very good description of how we learn through the kind of problem solving and dialogical ideas that Paulo Freire outlined. We work together, in this case, on community opera projects, and we learn through that experience of working together informally. Now, I wanted to make a connection with another thing that I was working on last year, which is the 2020 Rome Charter, which was developed by the City of Rome and an international organization called UCLG, United Cities and Local Governments, which is based in Barcelona. And it was a dialogue between people in many cities across the world, and to draft a document that expressed what is said, as you can see on this slide, the right, but our commitment that the right to participate fully and freely in cultural life is vital to our cities and communities. And in effect, what the Rome Charter was trying to do, and I was involved in the drafting of the Charter, and for me, what I was most trying to answer was, what does that right, Article 27, actually mean? If we have the right to participate in the cultural life of the community, what does that actually mean in practice? That's a question that I've been asking myself for many years and trying to find an answer. And in the Rome Charter, I tried to answer that question. And I'll explain in a moment, as I come to the conclusion of these remarks. I'll explain how I tried to do that. And what I did was go to another set of thinking, which was the capabilities approach that has been developed by thinkers like Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum, whom you can see here, particularly in economic life and human development, less in rich countries than in poor countries. But it's a really important set of ideas that seem to me to provide a way to connect the work that I and millions of others have done in community and participatory arts and education with that human right to participate in the cultural life of the community. Martha Nussbaum says that capabilities are the answers to the question, what is this person able to do and to be? And in that approach, that is the fundamental question that all human beings face. In my life, in my existence, in this one moment that I have of being alive? What am I able to do and to be? In the capabilities approach, as Nussbaum says, they are not just the abilities residing in a person, but also the freedoms or opportunities that are created by a combination of personal abilities and the political, social, and economic environment within which we live. So, in other words, we have, all of us, natural abilities of all kinds. I've always thought that Howard Gardner's idea of multiple intelligences was completely convincing. One of my children is good at mathematics. The other is good at visual storytelling. They have fundamentally different abilities that they have been able to develop in different ways, and now they use their abilities in their working lives. One of them's a video editor, the other one works for the tax office. So I'm not sure how much his mathematics helps him there. My point is, we have natural abilities, and the circumstances, the combination of those personal abilities with the political, social, and economic environment allows us, or doesn't allow us, the opportunity to make the most of those abilities. Those are capabilities. Now, one of the ways that I understand this distinction is, if you look at someone like Martha Nussbaum, she's one of millions of women who in the 20th and 21st century have been able to contribute to human knowledge and flourishing through breakthroughs in research, in intellectual knowledge, in philosophy, in art, in education, in all kinds of fields. But before the 20th century, Martha Nussbaum and most women would not have been able to turn their innate abilities, their personal abilities, into those resources for themselves and for humanity, because until the 20th century, most women were not able to go to university. You couldn't get a degree from most European universities if you were a woman until, it varies from country to country, but certainly until the 20th century. Therefore, you might have had the abilities, but you did not have the freedoms or opportunities from your political, social, and economic environment to allow them to flourish. And that is the core of capabilities. Now, how do capabilities turn into cultural education, the right to participate in the cultural life of the communities? In Traction, that's what we're trying to understand. In the Rome Charter, I proposed 5 cultural capabilities, things that we should all be able to do, and that the institutions that provide education and culture and public services and guarantee our rights should set out to ensure that all citizens have these cultural rights. And they are the right to discover culture, to enjoy culture, to create it, to share it, and to protect it, to discover who we are, our own cultural identity and the cultural identity of others, the cultural resources of the place and the community where we live, and the cultural resources of the world at large, to enjoy culture, to have access to it, to be able to be nourished and enriched by cultural experiences, to create our own culture and artistic expressions, to have the education and the skills to build those resources, to have the spaces and the legitimacy of that, and then to be able to share it, to be able to present our work in the same galleries and theatres and public spaces and media outlets have access to, and finally to be able to protect our culture, to say, to not have it neglected or attacked by other groups in society. Those 5 cultural capabilities, I think, are what it means to participate in the cultural life of the community. They are how we have access to Article 27, how that cultural right can happen. And they are all forms of a dialogic, problem-solving approach to culture and education. They avoid the flaws that I identified. They are not there. I don't see any ethical or political challenges in seeking to enable people, whether they are young people or adults, to achieve those 5 cultural capabilities, and nor do I see any problems in the sense that they work, because we are not in enabling people to have those capabilities. We are not trying to engineer or make anything happen. We are giving people access to capabilities that they control and they choose what to make happen with. Thank you. I will leave you now with a final thought from another educator, Maxine Green, a philosopher and an educator from America, very much influenced by Paulo Freire, who wrote that the arts can move the young to see what they have never seen, to view unexpected possibilities. They are always there on the margins, to refuse the indecent, the unjust, to awaken the critical and committed to visions of things being otherwise. There can be no final solution, but there is time, always time, to reject somnolence, to choose to begin. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Francois, for your beautiful and very interesting presentation. We have received a few questions for you, but I will choose maybe the one or two because of the time. So the first question is, many of us are often inspired by good and successful projects or organizations from abroad. Could you tell us some good examples of the centers you have met with?
The easiest thing I can do is point you to a website that I created to support the writing of a book. The website is, the link is www.arestlessart.com. The book is also called A Restless Art, RESTLESS. And you can download the book from the website as a PDF. Among other things, I mean, it's a book in which I try to explain a lot of these ideas, but not the Rome Charter, because I hadn't thought that through yet. But you can find the Rome Charter. The Rome Charter has its own website, and you can download that in many European languages. So if you Google or search for the Rome Charter, you will find that. But in the book, A Restless Art, there are 50 color pages which just describe in about 300 words projects from something like 17 European countries that I think are really interesting from a very wide range of perspectives. There are also other projects on the website itself that aren't in the book. So in terms of things that I found interesting and know you'll find a lot there, but I keep discovering new ones, and I will tell you something I only heard about yesterday, which you might like to look up, which is a an organization called Doorstep Arts. Doorstep, like what you step over to get into a house. Doorstep Arts, which is in a town called Torbay, Torbay, in southwest England, which seems, I've only just been in contact with them, but they are doing what looks to me like fantastic educational work with young people across that city. So yeah, lots and lots of great projects to look at.
Thank you very much. And the second question for you we get received is, could you talk a little about project structures which enable the 5 culture capabilities in terms of planning, delivery, evaluation, etc.?
Yes and no. I haven't yet. Part of what I need to do with Traction is to connect the 5 capabilities into that experience, because the 5 capabilities didn't exist until last year when I thought them up, if you see what I mean. So I am still trying to work out how some of these things work. But again, in a restless art, I have outlined a project structure. I think projects become most powerful when they are cyclical. In other words, when they go through a cycle and repeat that cycle, because every time the people involved go through the cycle, they learn, and power and knowledge is transferred from those who have more of it at the beginning of that process to those who have less of it at the beginning of that process. The project cycle that I've outlined in that book has 4 stages. The first is conception, when the project idea emerges, and the development of that idea. The second is a stage which I think is often neglected or underappreciated, and I call it contracting, which is the process of agreeing how people are going to work together. It's not just the contracting of a funder with the project holder, the person who's going to deliver the project, but it's the contracting between the professional and the non-professional artists, between the non-professional artists themselves. By non-professional artists, it's the term I prefer to terms that are often used, like participants. I prefer non-professional artists because if people are involved in an artistic project, they are artists, they are acting as artists. They happen to be non-professional in that role, but that's the role that they are doing, in the same way as when I cook, I am being a cook. I may not be a very good cook, but I am being a cook. I'm not participating in cookery. So that process of contracting is really important, because it's about how we establish our responsibilities towards each other, what our rights are in the project, what we think we are being there for, what are our intentions, what are our purposes. That, I think, needs to be made as clear as possible. The third stage is the stage everyone is most interested in, of course, the stage of co-creation, of working on making something together. And the final stage, again, is often neglected, which is completion, which is the process of asking, what did we do? How did we do it? What do we think of what we did? Are we happy with it? And crucially, that process naturally opens up the question of what do we do now? Because we started this because there was a problem or a situation or a desire that needed to be addressed. We now have, because of what we've done, we now may have a different situation, problem or desire. And that then leads you naturally to the conception of the next project, the thing we want to do to solve or address the things that the first project we did didn't achieve, or because we now know much better what we want, what problem we're trying to solve in Paulo Freire's terms. Now we're better informed, we have better judgment, we have more experience, so we can conceive a project which is more likely to achieve what we want to do the second time around. So I think that is the model that has worked for me in the past.
Thank you very much, Francois. We are happy to have you here for your deep presentation and case studies. It was very interesting and inspired, I think. And now I would like to say everybody that we will meet at 11 at the next presentation, and see you in the next case study about psychology with Timotea Vrablova. And one more time, thank you, Francois, to have you here. We are very happy, and we are sending you best regards from Bratislava. Thank you. Dear friends, we are back after the break, and now I am looking forward to the next theme about psychology. As I have yesterday mentioned, psychology and dramaturgy, or creating the culture programs, are very much interlinked, and I am looking forward to the next topic, psychology of young audience, which will be presented by Timotea Vrablova from Slovak Academy of Sciences. Timotea works as a researcher, literary scholar. She is a teacher at the Academy of Performing Arts in Bratislava, advanced lecturers in several countries, and she is also an author of books and articles and a script writer for Slovak radio and a translator. She will present the topic psychology of young audience through questions to inspire people and make them think about all possible sorts of problems in advance. I just remind you, if you have any questions, please submit them in a sli.do. And now, Timotea, we are happy to have you here. It's a pleasure to see you, and we are looking forward to your speech. It's your space.
Thank you very much, Nadia. It's my real pleasure to speak to you about the topics. They are really very deeply in my heart. And for the beginning, I think we should start with our own experience and exploration. So just have a look at this picture. And I know it's on screen, so our experience is roughly limited, but would you be so kind and try just to imagine that child, and how do you want to interact with this little baby? Just try to search in your feelings, in your mind, and look at this little thing. And now we just change the setting. It will not be on the screen. Just you can close your eyes and now try to imagine that instead of this picture, you have a little doll or any other object, whatever. It can be also a cup or just a piece of stone. And try to think, how do you want to interact with it personally? I know it's very quick, and I didn't give you probably enough space. I cannot see your eyes, how you work with this task. But at least if you have a glimpse of these feelings in both our tasks, you can feel that probably it should be rather a difference to try to keep connection to a piece of stone or even a doll, that's a toy. And it will be a little bit different from if I have personal contact Of course, it's a picture of this little baby, but if you look into the eyes of this little one, so you can see something what we call in psychology engagement. It is his or her awe to see who is looking at me. And if you look at it, it's not just, there are feeling of joy, feeling of expectation, the fixation, full concentration on us who want to interact, who want to be in touch with him or her. And this is the moment when this little one feels that the world is a very, very safe place for him or her. This is actually the basic foundation if we think about any kind of getting to know, any kind of process of knowledge, of getting knowledge. This is a foundational condition that people could feel safe, because this is our basic need, and without it, whatever we receive, it's just flat. It's on the surface, never influence us so deep that we can use it in a deep way. If it's on the surface, any other things, any other skills, any other competencies that would help us to be creative, to adapt to situation, to be really eager to get more and more knowledge, to be focused, to be able to grow inside, to be able to transform our lives somehow. So whatever, it's very limited if we don't feel safe. And of course, we are now, our topic is, we are talking about children now. So how these children could feel safe? They could feel safe, first of all, if they are subjects, not objects. Now I use philosophical or terms, anthropological terms. I love the concept of Martin Buber, who describes that we are relational beings, and our well-being, our physical and psychological condition is actually based on relationship, the way we keep this statute of subjects rather than objects. So object, it was this piece of stone. We have different kind of relationship to a stone, to a doll, than to a real life person, a living person. So I wanted to focus that for any kind of growth, for any kind of knowledge, the role of emotional experience is very important. I mentioned the word experience, so let us explore a little bit. There are two great heroes in psychology, Donald Winnicott, from the beginning of English pediatrist and psychologist, sorry, and Carl Rogers, well-known therapist and psychologist from the United States. Both of us brought into psychology a very important contribution, because they speak about experience. Winnicott is interesting for us because he also speaks about cultural experience. And if you can see at the screen, cultural experience, according to him, is located in the potential space between the individual and the environment, which is originally the object. So in the beginning of our conversation or my speech, I ask you to think about subject or object. And now we have this situation that we can imagine a child and an object, whatever he or she deals with, whether it is a doll or a piece of stone. And Winnicott say that it is in the area of of his playground, is his personal playground, a place where he gets to experience. So, cultural experience, according to Winnicott, begins with creative living, first manifested in play. For every individual, the use of this space is determined by life experiences that take place at the early stages of the individual existence. Why do I talk about early stages? Because they are in us forever. So if you deal with teenagers, if you deal with adults, if you deal with I don't know, school children in this age group, all of us need the similar to little ones. We need this experience that has something similar to what a child obtains in a play. The other psychologist, Carl Rogers, speaks that experience for him is the highest authority. He is most focused on how to bring up a child that is very, very self-confident, where the child or an adult who is really strongly individuality and able to make his or her own way of thinking and having opinions. So we are talking about very important thing, and it is experience. Both Winnicott and Rogers would say that the experience in a child's life comes from a spontaneity. So play, according to Winnicott, must be spontaneous. And this is very important because nowadays, we actually, in many programs, in many other offers in education and also how we bring up children, so we sometimes violently invade this process of spontaneity. It is not only how can child react, whether he beats the stone or he just throw it. It is to make him or her a space where she or her can take what she feels for. And this is very different because many times we rather direct it than to give this space. And you can argue with me that, oh, we have so many interactive plays and so on. But later on, we can think if they are really interactive, because look what experience means for a child. Experience is based on physical contact, physical interaction. This is what our brain needs the most. Experience comes from full emotional engagement. Full emotional engagement is based on physical interaction. There are many experiments, and one is well known as a still phase. You know, a baby who and mom suddenly shows only a still face without emotion, without any sign of interaction, and baby tries to make her engaged, and she doesn't react in this experiment. And what happens? He is in the baby is in chaos. The baby is frustrated. The baby starts to feel like very lonely and very lost. And I know it's again about baby, but it is a very good symbolic example how we really works getting experience. That's why prevailing of technologies, for example, in experience is actually reducing this possibility for children to have physical contact. As my time here, of course, as other speakers, is very limited, we cannot go into that. I just give you a hint where to think or what to think about. Competence and skills developed through relationship to persons and the outer world. And we must understand that for kids, even after the preschool age, the outer world is somehow very deeply connected with people again. They represent symbolically also the outer world, whether it is safe or not. So competence and skills develop through relationship. That's why, because we are relational persons. What is the important thing in all this is a cultural language. And cultural language is actually a symbolic language. And children learn that language when they are the whole time until they come to school. So their thinking, their viewing the world is just through symbolic language. This is what we usually miss nowadays with kids who are, for example, in preschool education, and they come to our cultural activities. We feel very much responsible to teach them. So we teach them rather information than we would bring them into experience that would make them connection with their symbolic world. And that is also an important thing that stops actually this process of growing a knowledge in them. We can see what is the focus on nowadays is access to information. We prefer rather game that is structured, sophisticated, than the play of child. We try to teach them very early computer language. Again, it is very structured, so they have less experiences with the real experiences, and we actually don't help them to emotional development, because we all the time try to put them into rational area. And dear friends, I must tell you that until the age of 7, 8, the brain doesn't have enough developed neocortex. And that means that everything that is more like knowledge, like information, is far away from a child. They are able somehow to pick it, but if they really learn, so they learn through experience that is very emotionally somehow with very emotional background. So our pragmatic focus to be participated in knowledge-based society and so on, it is not for the younger ages at all.
Dear Timothea, I have to make a short break in your presentation, and because it's time to ask you questions and then to switch to another speaker.
Okay.
So I would like to kindly ask you one question which we have received for you. Please answer. What do you think? How will the psychology of kids and youth change after the pandemic situation and isolation? And how long will it take to come back to the normal?
Very good question, because we are fixed at this experience information. So you can imagine what pandemic situation and the screens and isolation would make with children. They are consequences already now. They are teenagers are lost because they miss their relationship with their own age groups. So many teenagers are now also on therapies. Then children who are at school, like school, all ages, all age group, they suffer actually from isolation, again relational, but also they suffer from this structured education that is based on computers, and I know, and I talk to many of them, that they don't feel that they learned really, and they feel like in prison. I am just talking something what refers to their feelings. So what I think is that children would need help in emotional way. All age group would need us adults to be really focused on emotional development. It's one thing, and strengthening the whole picture. Not only looking at some problems, at some topics, but how the topic relates to the whole world. This is very important because this aspect must make us always feeling more safe. So if we want to strengthen their individuality and feeling of safe, which is connected, so this will be very important for us to give them the whole picture, things in the whole picture. What does it mean? For example, not only to dealing with topics like death. I found out that, for example, many theaters now are thinking about bringing the topic of death to the program. It's actually a fatal mistake, in my opinion, because we give them information and we don't relate to their own context, their individual context. So now is the time we will have to be more sensitive that every child would have individual need. So rather to bring them very heavy topics, we should strengthen this feeling strengthen something that will bring them into the feeling of safety, that the outer world is somehow safe.
Yes, Timothea, you are absolutely right. I agree with you, and I know that it is a very deep theme, and we can discuss about psychology and dramaturgy for maybe next hour, and it will be very interesting for all of us. But now it's a time to switch to another speaker. And I would like to invite the longest running culture center in Slovakia, Stanica Žilina, that created in last year a project on the premises of the gallery Nová Synagoga. And the team will present the educational strategies they used while still working on this project. And the speakers will be two ladies from Stanica Žilina, and it is Hanna Hudcovičová-Lukšu and Simona Gotierova, which are working together for a long time. They operate in two venues of Trax Fericve Association in Žilina, Slovakia, and it is Stanica Žilina and the gallery Nová Synagoga. And they will present us their theme, Unexpected Education Opportunities by the Pandemic. So Hanna and Simona, welcome. We are looking forward to your speech.
Hello. Thank you, Nadia, for the word. We're trying to...
It's your turn now.
Yes, thanks. We're trying to make a screen share.
Yes.
Oh. Sorry, just a second. Can you see now the first slide? Yes. Okay. So thank you for the word again.
And hello. This is us on the picture and here. And this will be our presentation about unexpected education opportunities by the pandemic. But first, we've been asked by organizers of this conference to also introduce our organization and its story, since we are pioneers of cultural centers in Slovakia. And as we operate these two cultural centers, as you see, on the right side, on my head, there's former railway station. And on the left side, on Simka's head, on the picture, there's Nová Synagoga, which is former synagogue. And For the very beginning of this presentation, I will start with two short, very abstract stories of formation and transformation of our two venues, while keeping its basic essence. And then in the second part, we will present education as we do it. So its formats and principles, and with focusing on how we reacted on the pandemic in 2020 and until now. So this is the beginning of Stanica's story, and there is a story of the family. They lived in Stanica, taking care of it, selling the tickets from the window, but what was most important, they were very nice and friendly people. It was said that they had a good words for everybody. So they were making a great human atmosphere, a place where people like to come again and again. And when we have found the building of Stanica, this family was already away. And as you see on this photograph, this place was in a bad state. People were avoiding it. But we were happy to receive the building from Railways Company and started to rebuild it in direction to our best dreams. Here you can see a technician who is a friend technician who is installing an alternative name for Kids Happening. And the translation for English speakers would be Žilina Wonderland. It's a little play on words. And after a few years of effort, we really received kind of dreamy place with cozy, homey, familiar atmosphere, you can see on this picture, which we believe is one of the main essences of Stanica, our treasures. And it's also a place of artist creation, which you can see on this picture, or artistic recreation, let's say. The place has this energy for us, energy of deep concentration on people, on things and topics, but together with a lot of distraction and diversion caused by place being so much lively, it's not easy to express in one picture. I have this drawn picture, randomly drawn really, from 2010. And I wanted to illustrate the atmosphere in around Stanica somewhere 10 years ago. And you can see a lot of people. Some are our friends, some are family members, some are accidental tourists. Some of them are coming every day. Some came once and then never. We are celebrating here a birthday of the train passing around. And this way Stanica community grew and flourished at the beginning. And here, there starts with this picture, the second story I wanted to share with you. And it's about our second venue, which is Synagogue. And it's also a story of disco ball in a metaphoric way. Here you can see the disco ball in the central star ornament of Synagogue, illuminated by this ball. It was some fancy event of TV transmission during some Christmas concert. And but our interest in Synagogue started in 2010 when we have heard that somebody wants to rent the building of Synagogue and to make a disco club there. So it was really shocking vision for this building with the unique cultural references, and it moved us to reach it under our care and start its upstanding reconstruction. So here you see the building in still a bit sleepy and frozen mode, but it's yet under very responsive, delicate reconstruction. And the main aim was to get it back to original Peter Behrens design, give it back to the honor of unique modern architecture realization, and it succeeded really well. So at the moment, reconstructed Synagogue, it's also partly the Museum of Functionalist Architecture, and it is a Jewish memorial and the part of official cultural heritage. But at the same time, we also succeeded in turning it back to its roots, to the essence of the word synagogue, which means getting people together for different, not only spiritual, but also learning and social reasons. So here you can see the fruits and the harvest happening of 2020. People met on terrace, and the tomatoes are perfect. People were asked to pick the tomatoes and with some fresh breads. And this is how one of possible small happy ends of Synagogue looks like. This is an art presentation of Simka, but at the same time, it's a friendly session of our community. And both of our venues, Stanica and Synagogue, are venues for art and culture, but we love to host it and to explore it and to create art and celebrate it. And I have no time to show you all on the pictures, but in fact, it's not only art we do here. We are not limited by this. For most days we host and show art, but it happens that the place can turn into something really different. Here you see, for example, a community marketplace. And in 2019, we hosted this theater performance, a piece of contemporary opera. And here you see the situation in 2020. The costumes are similar to opera, but the reality is really different. We became COVID testing place for some weekends. And maybe it's because we like to test our limits. And some changes used to come very spontaneous to us and playfully, but it's also seriously towards our community needs, and people then recognize us not only for feeding them with art, but also for our natural activism. And here, once more similar costumes, but different situation. It's maybe 2018, and or no, doesn't matter. Some education happens on this picture. And now we skip to education field of our organization and say shortly how we used to do it. And I will pass to Simka.
Thank you. I will present now to you briefly a variety of educational formats that we did before COVID, so you would be able to see the difference in the recent pandemic ones and in our reaction. Education of kids has been part of the organization's activities from the very beginning, and it has been connected with visual arts mainly. We used to run several weekly lessons at Stanica with targeted group of kids of 5 to 12 years. Now you can see more classical techniques. The essence of this format lies in a broad range of creative activities, switching from more classic ones, technique and themes, to the experimental and unconventional ones. For example, kids could experience painting not only on paper or wall, but also on the pens of the lecturer. Here you can see artist Juraj Gabor, and that is also one of the main principles of the education we do, that we collaborate with artists. And then their lessons are rooted deeply and inspired by their own artistic practice. We also have another regular format we provide twice a month, art lessons for parents and toddlers and youngest kids. Format is educatively aimed at both kids and parents as well. In the picture, you can see mothers in a conversation with artist and gallery educator Magda Kuchtova, who made several lessons with us in the beginning of 2019. We also make summer symposiums every year when we enjoy being with kids outdoors in a simple, natural, and creative way. Now I skip to New Synagogue. Informal education there is mainly aimed at school groups from 3 to 18 years. And it is often the very first contact of these kids with contemporary fine art and contemporary gallery space. Kids experience themselves with the art and space of Synagogue, and we shared with them rules and specifics of the gallery space, but at the same time, the possibilities, freedom, and joy it can bring. We aim to make it a place they will want to come back, and we naturally share with them our enthusiasm, questions, wonder, or delight we have in art, and we want to engage them too. You can see here a format again, parents with the youngest kids, but now in the gallery. We aim to make comfortable conditions for them, make it safe and free space so they can relate to the art, express what they feel and think, express it verbally and also in a creative task. Experiencing their own creativity is always part of the visit. They are encouraged to think and to do things in a bigger scale and maybe upside down the other way that they are used to do. Program in Synagogue is more about switching one's thinking and perceiving than about learning fine arts techniques. Kids usually create from untypical artistic material. Education takes place right in the space of the exhibition, so the group is confronted by art pieces constantly. At the very end of the duration of the exhibition, we make a workshop for public across generations, something like a feast to celebrate the exhibition together. And we also used to make a cake that is mine and Hanka's interpretation of the exhibition. We naturally love to celebrate, but this is also our way how to make our gallery space more informal, homely and intimate place for people that come in. We believe this is one of the ways.
And we hope that now you have the better idea of who we are and how we operate. But this is a written list of how we see our values and strong points. In presentation, we try to speak about it, but maybe for somebody it's better to see it like this, summarized. And now we can turn back 1 year ago when pandemic started, and we can try to review how these values worked in critical times. So here you see our big inspiration for the beginning of pandemic. And the pandemic caught the two of us in the situation of the common fascination by these drawings. These are examples of drawings of 20th century Inuit artist Pitseolak. And then while we were creating the distant forms and content of education to replace these live ateliers and live programs for the public, these pictures shine on us and show us the positive, focused and radiant aspect of isolation. So we've got a lot of inspiration out of it, and we wanted to share it. Let our friends know about it, and also to say hello and ask them how they are, how they struggle with the new situation. And because we are too shy, the two of us, to make some shows or videos, we decided to write in the form of letter. And this is the way this first letter came into being. It has this simple PDF format, and we send it via email to parents of kids we communicate with and post it to our web page and social networks, and it was really free source. And we waited for their reaction. And kids and parents immediately started to send us pictures. Some of them were, same as us, fascinated by Pitseolak way of life, the Inuit culture, which is so different to what we can live in here in 21st century. And how can, for example, somebody grow 17 kids in one igloo, or having tattoos even on the face. And some of the reactions were commented the new situation by drawing. Many of drawings show us details of their homes, not only on drawings, but on pictures, on photos, where they cook, eat, play, watch TV, or learn to school and sleep. And on some pictures, we saw their balconies and ateliers and other plein airs. And we were happy with them when they managed to bake bread. This one is one eye blinking bread. And we received maybe up to 30 very different reactions on our first letter, and it was very encouraging and also very formative and inspirational for designing our next issues. Generally, at the beginning, all our letters were mainly designed to say hello and activate people at quarantine with some accessible art activities. And it was really easy to follow our instructions to make some play on art and send us the results. This is April issue, which was about growing grass. And this was one of May issues, which was about building nests. On some of the issues, we also cooperate with external artists. Not only two of us prepared that topics, but also what happened that all the society and schools adapted better to online functioning after a few weeks and pandemic way of life, and the attractivity of our worksheets and tasks markedly decreased. So generally we had maybe some 5 stable reactions on them, but we had also some other positive spoken or written feedback. So people wrote us, or told us that they are following the letters and showing and reading them to kids, but they have no time to react specifically on them and send us some results and creations. We tried to be a bit tricky by creating an issue with email horse race, where people should be a little bit competitive and send a drawing of horse as soon as possible. And from this week, we received maybe some 15 horses, but generally we started to understand that the situations really is changing, and a lot of the families start to be overwhelmed and tired by school tasks and many digital inputs. But here you again can see a nice example of very intimate reaction, that one mother sent us this 20 old years picture of her daughter when she was 4 and draw her first horse. And meantime, some people also start to freestyle and send us their free creativity. One mother sent us few pictures of her kids and told us how she appreciates our open attitude on what she can send, because she was really disappointed by some negative comments of some other art teachers of her kids. So these are our complete 2020 issues of letters. There are 10 of them, and 8 of them were spread at the moments of distant learning. In Slovakia, it was whole spring season and later autumn season. And on 2 of them, the numbers 7 and 8, we also tested, had the possibility to test it in live mode. During a short summer period when there was no lockdown and restrictions, we used those 2 letters as guidelines for our activities. One happened at Stanica Ateliers and the other in Synagogue art exhibition, and both were perfectly working. And this way we validate that the concept of letters works also outside the pandemic situation, and that we can be grateful to pandemic to give us a large scale room for conception of it and setting it and testing those letters. And now this is actual one. In 2021, the new artistic project started in Synagogue for a whole year. And here you can see the Sfera and its first letter of new Sfera series. But by the experience of last year, we only attuned a bit the scope of asking people to follow our task, include it and send us their results, because we really understand that there's no capacity for them to do that this time. But the main aim stays the same. We wish to stay in close distant contact, say hello, and by the way, spread few art news. And we hope soon we can physically meet and celebrate it together.
Now I will talk about the second format that arose from pandemic, the one-to-one guided visits in synagogue, a format that came out of corona restrictions during last fall in Slovakia, when it was allowed to meet in a group up to only 6 people. There was no aim to replace the typical commented tour led by artists and curators we also organized before Corona. This format was more like to have a gallery friend who accompanies the visitor on the way to his own interpretations, relation to the exhibition. It was about following his own trajectory. As you can see, there was no age limit. One of the best qualities was that I could react individually to each visitor or group. Main impulse was to react to what the visitor brings in the dialogue with me and the particular exhibition. I saw it as a very open situation. There was also a switch in our target group from school groups to families and adults, individuals. Each visit was different and it could vary. Sometimes it was me giving information, other times it was more like a dialogue with the visitor. And it also happened once that it was me who was listening mostly to one of the visitors who had a strong need to communicate in person after a longer time. Sometimes visitors interpreted the exhibition verbally, other times they also did creative activities with the materials. Now I would like to compare this new format with the typical commented tours led by artists or curators, which we also provided before COVID. Here you can see artists and a curator on the left side and the visitors on the right side. Those two groups are a little bit separated. Visitors were listening, but mostly didn't react, ask or express themselves. It was in a way expected who brings the content and who is passive. What happened in this new format was that this line between those who know and those who listen blurs and situation is more balanced. It was a huge difference. Adults felt comfortable enough to express themselves in a situation when they were with their family, friends, or just by themselves. It was this quality of adult visitors' experience we wanted to get to also before in a different format, but didn't succeed this much until now, when it happened quite unexpectedly. In effect, we don't even have good photographs of this visit since I didn't want to disturb the intimate atmosphere by presence of the photographer. It wasn't priority of promo material, but of comfortable situation for visitors. All the photos you see have been taken by the visitors themselves to document their experience and to remember it. And now we are at the end of our presentation. So I would like to sum up what qualities we see in these two formats that me and Hanka presented, and also to interconnect them with values and traits of the organization. Pandemic didn't allow us to meet each other face to face in a bigger group of people, or to do what we used to like. But it made a space for something new to begin that we wouldn't think of before. With both presented formats, we reacted on the limiting situation in a way that we enjoy and feel is authentic for us. We also understood it is valuable for our audience, whose diverse feedback we caught and is still coming to us. It was not planned nor expected, but it definitely enriched our scope of educational sources. Presented formats will not replace our existing ones, but are another layer that we discovered. We want to continue both even after pandemic, when situation will be closer to how it was before. We already did this in summer when we've been open for a while. As Hanka mentioned, we worked with 2 letters as a methodology for weekly art lessons, or we reused the letters as an educational material that accompanied the exhibition. From the very beginning, both formats were aiming quality, not quantity. We experienced something as closeness in the middle of distance caused by pandemic, a paradox and intimacy that surprised us. We strengthened our relationship with the settled audience, but also made new friends.
Thank you, Hannah, and Simona, for your interesting presentation. We get a few questions for you, but you have already answered in this your last speech. And I can remind our participants that they will have a possibility to speak with you also in a World Cafe style discussion. So if they want to ask you something more, there will be a new possibility. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I like your creativity during this pandemic, and it was really interesting that in a small groups what opportunity it brings to you and your center. Thank you very much. And now I will switch to the next theme, which is storytelling. As I mentioned, storytelling is a great tool used to increase general knowledge about literature. We will be here from Centro Italiano Storytelling from Italy about their case study, which they have done in a museum gallery in Florence. The speaker, Giovanna Conforto, is an international storyteller with 20 years of experience. She is a founding member of Stories in Plays, and it is the creative director of an Italian storytelling center, where she speaks on behalf of Flavio Milandri of the Metamuseo Girovago. The Italian Storytelling Center is the only center in Italy working on applied storytelling. Her talk will be about storytelling and museum in general and her experience about museum gallery in Florence. She will present us her case study, and we are looking forward to hear about the storytelling project. It's a pleasure because the storytelling workshops or informal education activities are, from my point of view, so less. So I am excited to hear you. Giovanna, is yours turn now.
So my name is Giovanna Conforto. I am the creative director of the Italian Center, where I am speaking from. So this is the Italian Storytelling Center. This is one room, and we are in the municipality of Portico di Romagna, which is a little village on the top of a mountain between Florence and Bologna. We are here in a building that is owned by the municipality, so it is a public building, and it is full of other social possibilities. We have the public library right in front of us, the music school, the public music school downstairs, the doctors, and so it is a social space. I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about us. I hope so. Oh, yes, I want to share my desktop. Why is it not sharing? Here we are. Do you see me? I hope you hear and you see me, because I cannot hear and see you. So we're going to talk about bridging tangible and intangible heritage.
Giovanna, we don't see your screen.
You don't see my screen, so we will go back.
Yeah, please.
It. So let's go. This was undesired. I want to share my screen with you. Do you see it now?
Yes, yes. It started working. Perfect.
Yes. And the presentation. So here we are. So the Italian Storytelling Center, we need to go back one step. Okay, here we are. So my speech is going to be bridging tangible and intangible heritage in museum education through storytelling. So first of all, what do we mean a little bit by tangible, and what do we mean by intangible? Just very, very simply, tangible is building and artifacts, and intangible is practices, skills, tradition, and knowledges. But in the UNESCO definition, the most important for the intangible is that it needs to be shared by a community. So to make it very simple, we can say that in this work, we're going to see how stories can connect objects of art, in this case, to a community. And this is what we're going to talk about. A little bit more about our center. We were set up in 2018, though we started working already in 2015, and we are the only center in Italy working on applied storytelling. Applied storytelling is where we use stories as a tool. Of course, we do perform the stories, we do tell the stories, we do work on the stories, but they're not our main aim. So we're not so much interested in the performance, but in the use that we can do of stories. And our main interests are storytelling and business, storytelling and community, storytelling and social issues. We have worked with the local prison and with migrants. And so we are based in this little tiny village on the top of the mountain, but we work all over Italy, as you will see. The work that we're going to look at today, the work in museums, is for us in the group of work which is storytelling and community. So museums have many heritages. So we can't continue thinking, as we have seen in so many presentations during this conference, as museums as something static, as something that doesn't move. But this is absolutely shared by all the other speeches that I've heard during these conferences. So museums have stories, they have desires, they have dreams, they have objects, and they have people. It's a melting pot. And so, in fact, museums represent a relationship between present and past, between different cultures, between reality and imagination, and are a powerful context for social action between storytelling, playful culture, expressive workshops, embodied cognition approach, which are a bit all of the elements that are in the museum education as we see it today. And now we're going to specifically see what our work as the Italian Storytelling Center can be, has been, and what storytelling can do for the whole of this. So, yes, so there's a museum, there's this place where there's all these heritages that we have seen, and but how do we make it a place that is not dead and that is living? My mentor at the School of Storytelling in Emerson College always says that the best way to be a good storyteller is to listen. So the museum education is a space for research to listen to the social environment, narrating and co-creating. But to do all this, we need to listen what there is around us. And this is the historic moment to definitely rethink the paradigm of the role of museums for society by putting its inhabitants and the public right in the center, and from there radiating. The museum becomes a driving force for territorial development that radiates beauty, a factor for the improvement of the human fabric, of the urban fabric, a producer of culture and debate, a transformation operator. And for this, we need stories. And this is where we go to the video, not yet, please. And this is a beautiful experiment. I started working with the Uffizi Gallery in Florence in 2015. And this is another work that happened this year for Women's International Day, International Women's Day. And what does it do? It takes objects, so the pictures in the gallery, and it relates them to stories, so to intangible, to what it relates. So it bridges, this bridge is very, very important, it bridges objects with intangible heritage. In this case, International Women's Day, which is intangible heritage. How does it do it? Through stories. So the first element we need to highlight when we're talking about storytelling in museums is choices. It makes a choice. And in this case, it chooses 4 women, the story of 4 women who are Anna Maria Luisa de Medici, who has created the Uffizi Gallery, Eleonora de Toledo, who has created the Boboli Garden, Elisa Bonaparte Bacciocchi, who has created the first public education plan in Tuscany, and Artemisia Gentileschi, who is a famous painter who was born in 1593. And if we can see now the video, the beginning of this video, that would be great.
Michelangelo, Leonardo, Lorenzo, Cosimo, Botticelli, Dante. Tutti maschi. E le femmine? Ma non ci sono signore che hanno fatto grande Firenze?
Ma certo che ci sono, piccola mia.
E tu chi sei?
Okay, so let's go to our case study in our last 5 minutes, and it is the Meta Museo, and our project is called Storytelling at Museum of the Future or for the Future. And what happened here? So there was a shopping mall called I Portici in a quite underprivileged area of town. There are some shops in this shopping mall, but most are closed. This shop was closed, and the area was not very interesting. It was quite dark and quite sad. This project by the Meta Museo Girovaco was set up, and Flavio Milandri and his team have brought it to life, bringing artifacts in this place. So the general results were the action on the social environment, the meeting the needs of the place, programs and activities and events in connection with the world, connection with local groups, neighborhoods and committees, association for future planning that is still in progress, and the presence on social media. And what has happened? This happened that people from the neighborhood were interested in what was happening in this place, and they started coming. The museum had to close after only 2 days because of COVID lockdown, but nevertheless, people would look at the windows. And I'm going to share 3 teeny tiny little stories. One is the case of a little boy who really, really wanted to come and look at the artifacts, and he came with his father, and the father said, "No, I'm sorry, it's closed." But still, the child was so interested, he couldn't resist the idea of coming and meeting the art and the place. The second is the one of a lady who came down in her slippers and wanted to welcome this new activity. And the third is the experience of a man, not of Italian origins, who came with his vases and wanted them to be exposed in the Meta Museo because he wanted to contribute, he wanted to share, he wanted to bring his own art to this place. The greatest result, so we have had all these results, as you can see, but the most incredible is that this place that was abandoned and had been abandoned for years is now rented. So there is a new activity in this place. And so the art, the general work, all this work has brought new life to a place. This is the poster. So from a storytelling point of view, what has happened? So life tailored stories, because we had a storyteller in residence there who told stories to the people who came. Real life anecdotes, as I have told you. Online stories, because when the museum was closed, the bridge between the people, the audience, the people who came and the artifacts was made online, and we'll have 20 seconds of that. Then we had tales about materials and workshops. So all of this went to become workshops in schools, and then we had authorial work. The very famous Italian book writer wrote this book, Prezzemolo il gatto del mistero, which was presented there. So it's very important that not only oral storytelling, but also authors were interested in this project. We can see the other little video, which is an example of this.
Ciao a tutti e benvenuti al Metamuseo. Come potete vedere alle mie spalle ci sono dei bellissimi pesci, dei pesci che sono stati realizzati con dei materiali di riciclo e molti sono stati trovati sulla spiaggia. Quindi diciamo che metaforicamente sono un po' dei pesci magici che sono usciti dal mare e che sono approdati sulla terra.
Okay, I don't know if we can go back. So this is one of our artifacts. So as you have seen, the story is...
Excuse me.
Pardon?
Excuse me, Giovanna. Now we need that you will again share your screen.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Excuse me.
It will take 20 minutes because I'm almost finished, but I have to redo this. Oh, I have to get out of... let me see. Share screen. Here we go. Also, no, wait. Where were we? We were here. Okay, so this was one of our... Okay. So this is one of the artifacts. This is the conclusion. The complementary tasks of a museum today are central to promoting the development of collaborative projects with various social groups, educational institutions, activists, artists, citizens, to expand rights and make other voices audible. When will be visible? We have a festival in Cesena in September, which is around 100 kilometers from here, and the Metamudeo Gerovaco will be back in Forlì in October 2021. This has not happened in Florence, but in Forlì, which is our local capital. And this is the book I was talking about, and these are the useful contacts that I will put back in a moment, and arrivederci and thank you. Here we are. Maybe I can stop sharing the screen, so I hope I will see you again.
Thank you, Giovanna, for your presentation and a case study about storytelling in a museum. We have received one question for you, so I will read it. What do you think is the most efficient storytelling format?
No. Okay. For me, there is no doubt. The best and most efficient storytelling format is live. There is nothing that, as we have heard also from the speech of the psychologist, there is nothing that works well as the interaction between people. I think there is so much more than the words and the gesture that can be seen also on the video, but there's, I call it the smell. There is something in the magic of real interaction that, for me, doesn't happen elsewhere.
Thank you so much for your answer and for your presentation. We are happy to have you here because the storytelling is a beautiful format, and I think that we have to have a lot of storytelling in our culture centers and also in schools, because it's very good educational method for also children and youth. I like it a lot, and I'm also a little bit doing it in Slovakia, so I'm a big fan of you. And now we would like to move to another part of our seminar, and it's a lunch break. So I hope that you will enjoy your meal, and we will see at 1 p.m. and we will start with watching a short Slovak movie, and we have also a great possibility because here with us in A4 it's the directress of this short Slovak movie, so we will discuss a little bit also with her about the process of this short Slovak movie. So see you at 1 p.m. and enjoy your meal. Dear friends, welcome back after the lunch break. I hope you enjoy your meal and have enough rest. Now we are ready for the next program. This afternoon we are looking forward to speakers more and one discussion. And before that we are going to watch a Slovak short movie, Brother Dear, a short movie by Zuzana Žiaková. I will introduce you a film a little. It is a short film inspired by dark Slovak folk tale. It tells a story of two siblings who decide to escape the death itself. It was created at Academy of Performing Arts in Bratislava as a master project of a director Zuzana Žiaková. It is a short stop-motion film animated using puppets and real-size props and backgrounds. This film have a possibility to see audience all over the world because the film was traveling in many festivals and got a lot of awards. In Slovakia, the film won the Creative Bonus Slovak Award for TV and film called Igric. In Slovak festival, film festival Anča, so the film won a special mention award. And it has many times win Multiply Viewers Award in many festivals in abroad. So we are looking forward for the film Brother Dear, and after we will have a possibility to discuss a little bit with directress of this film because she is here with us in our team. Enjoy the film.
Priveďte ho, najvernejšie moje stráže. Nech to skončí, jak to večný zákon káže.
So we have seen a short film, Brada Deer, inspired by dark Slovak folk tale, and now I would like to welcome here in A4 the directors of the film, Zuzka Žiaková. Zuzi, welcome. And I would like to ask you, how long did you make the film?
Ahoj Nadi, thank you for having me here. So this project, as you mentioned before, was my master's project. So from the initial idea until the end of production, it took roughly 2 years to make. And the production itself, the shooting, after the puppets were made and all the props were made, the shooting itself was like 6 months or so. Yeah.
That's enough, a long time
for 12 minutes film, it's quite a lot. Yeah, yes, 2 years of full-time production.
I know that you make it like a short stop motion, so it can take such a long time. And Zuzi, what are you? Have you some project? What are you working on now?
Right now, actually, I'm planning to start teaching animation in September, so I'm looking forward to that. It will be a new experience for me, and I will be working with kids, so probably we will start doing some little projects with them, and let's see what we can make in roughly 1 year of collaboration together. So, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how it will go.
That sounds interesting. It's also part of informal education.
Yeah, that's true.
So we invite all the kids to Zuzka's workshops. And now we will switch to the next presentation. And it is also about informal education for children in theater. And it will be a presentation, Community Work as a Space of Transformation for Representation in Theater by Brechtje van Bel and Hussein Mahdi Al-Khalidi from Het Paleis from Belgium. Brechtje van Bel is an artistic educational employee in Het Paleis, and Hussein Al-Khalidi is a theater maker and actor from Baghdad. Het Paleis is a theater for children, young people and performing arts in the heart of Antwerp in Belgium. It is the largest theater for children and young people in Benelux. They will bring an example of how theater itself can change through community work. And please, I will remind you once again, don't forget to write the questions to the sli.do. So Brechtje and Hussein, we are looking for your presentation, and it's your turn now.
Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning. I don't know. It's time now in Slovakia. Did anyone hear me?
1:15.
Okay, so that's good. We
Please,
will speak about.
Can you start again?
Yeah, we will speak about community work as a space of transformation for representation in theater. This is my colleague Brechtje van Bel, and my name is Hussein Al-Khalidi. And Brechtje, she will give more information about Het Paleis and about the theater for children in Het Paleis and what happened there. Brechtje, the word for you.
Thank you, Hussein. So this is Het Paleis. This is how it looks like. In the introduction, you heard that it's in the center of the city, and you see some numbers of the performances we play here. We create theater. We create a lot of workshops during spare time, school workshops, and a lot of other activities in the city. But let's first have a look at the numbers of Antwerp. As you can see, Antwerp is it's a super diverse city in Belgium. It has 166 different nationalities, and 51% of its citizens has a migration background. 23% of the population are children, and 1 out of 4 children in Antwerp grows up below the poverty threshold. These are big numbers, so the question for us as a big art organization is how do we take responsibility towards these numbers? here are some of the things in our mission that are very important to us. Equality is fundamental, and with this we mean like equality between the public, from public to public, but also from the artists to the public, from the public to the artists. So we try to be, equal as much as possible. And then the second one is that everybody really has to feel welcome. Of course, everybody is welcome in het paleis, but they also have to feel it. And as you saw it on the pictures, we are located in a big square in Antwerp. And the numbers you saw before, they are not presented in the center mainly. They are more living in the neighborhoods or the outskirts of the city. So some years ago, we decided to be more present in the city. And the video that we will show now is one example of this being present in the city. Our umbrella organization Public made it for us. And maybe Hussein can tell something more about it, and then I can open the video.
Yeah. First, we will see a short film. And after that, I will give more information about our project and about what we did in this project, me and Bridget. Then you can see a little bit about our work. It is only a short film.
Hussein Al-Khalidi. Ik ben een Irakese theatermaker en ik ben een vluchtelingen. Ik werk samen soms met het paleis, allesmaker, alles workshopgever. Rauda en Khalid, zij zijn echt zo speciale kinderen. Zij zijn echt acteurs. Ze hebben theater niet gestudeerd, zij weten niks over theater, maar dat zit in hun bloed. Ik zie dat. Ik zie die energie rond hen. Het is schijnt. Echt waar. Zo, zij zijn zo speciaal en zij willen ook verder werken. Dat is fijn.
Ik ben Khaled, ik kom uit Palestina. Ik en mijn zus speelt theater. Daarom ben ik naar hier het paleis gegaan om lessen mee te volgen. En dat vind ik leuk. En als ik iets verzin, dan je gewoon je fantasie en je doet maar.
Het paleis is eigenlijk het grootste podiumkunstenhuis voor kinderen en jongeren van de Benelux. Wij organiseren schoolvoorstellingen en daarnaast nog tal van workshops in de vrije tijd. Wij zien in eigenlijk onze schoolvoorstellingen en ook in onze schoolworkshops zien wij heel de stad weerspiegeld. En dat is eigenlijk een super diverse stad. En er zit eigenlijk een verschil op tussen de workshops en de vrije tijd. Want in de vrije tijd komen daar eigenlijk meer kinderen van middenklasse ouders heen. En wij trachten eigenlijk al jaren in het paleis om daar een grotere mix van te maken.
Elke kind is een kunstenaar. Maar het probleem is, die kinderen, die jongeren van vluchtelingenafkomst of van armoedegebied komen, ze hebben echt geen kans om theater te beroeven. Want sowieso hun familie, hun ouders zijn bezig met overleven. Met gewoon werk. Maar theater, nee, dat is te hoog. Hoe kunnen wij betalen voor theater? Hoe kunnen wij dat doen? Nee, waar is de prioriteit? Moeten wij voor theater betalen, voor een voorstelling of zo? Of moeten wij meer voor eten? Dat is altijd de vraag van mensen die echt met een beperkt situatie zitten.
Dus sinds 2018 werken wij samen met Krasvize 2 voor een traject en dat heet het wijktraject. En dat wijktraject dat bestaat uit 8 theaterworkshops. 2 theaterworkshops die gaan door bij Kras zelf. En na 2 keer gaan die theaterworkshops verder voor doorstromers. En doorstromers, dat zijn kinderen die vanuit het wijktraject theaterworkshops dan in het paleis gaan volgen.
Als je zo'n toneelproject graag wil doen, dan is het eigenlijk heel belangrijk dat de toneelbegeleiding ook begrijpt waar dat een doelgroep van komt. Wat dat hun drempels zijn om toneel te spelen. Want er zijn veel kinderen die dat niet kennen, die niet weten waar dat is. Of dat mag misschien niet van thuis, omdat ze niet goed weten waar dat is. En als er dan iemand is die hetzelfde ervaren heeft als de kinderen of als het gezin, dan worden die drempels verlaagd.
En precies Rauda en Khalid, zij komen van Palestijn, ze zijn vluchtelingen, zeker, zoals ik ook. En ze wonen hier echt niet lang, ze wonen hier al binnen 2 jaar. Dus ik heb echt een beetje de link gemaakt en de verbonden tussen de twee kanten.
Ik vond dat eigenlijk leuk door zijn. Hij doet dat heel leuk voor kinderen. Omdat ik met iemand Arabisch ga praten, dan voel ik hem dat hij in een familie zit. Omdat ik kan eigenlijk niemand van Belgische mensen. En hij heeft ook voor mij iets laten leren. Dat je moet niet naar anderen luisteren als hun jou niet mooi vindt. En jouw acteur niet mooi vinden, dan is dat niet erg. Dat is jouw verantwoordelijkheid. Als ze jou uitlegt, dan is dat niet erg. Wat jij vond van jouzelf, is dat goed.
De grote meerwaarde van dat wijktraject, denk ik, en ook dus de persoon die dat begeleidt, dat gaat hem over een soort van representatie, herkenning van de kinderen. Dus ik denk dat de begeleiders daar echt sleutelfiguren zijn.
Het is zo belangrijk om hetzelfde taal te spreken. En hetzelfde taal, ik bedoel niet letterlijk de taal. Jij hebt mij gemaakt. Dan ik kan zeggen tegen jou, ik begrijp jou.
Thanks a lot. This was a short film about our project, Wake Traject. I would like to give some information about my theatrical experience and the cooperation with Hit Ballets. Every child is an artist. The difficult part is how to remain an artist once they grow up. Pablo Picasso. There is great creative energy within every child, but every child needs someone to help them in order to find this energy inside them, develop it and benefit from it. Working with children from different backgrounds, refugees, migration, from poor family is a challenge in itself. No matter what you read or research about these children, when you did not experience what they went through it will be difficult for you to explain to them your point of view. This is because they see you differently. You did not come from the same household and did not suffer like they suffered. In my experience with these children, I tried as much as possible to show them the magic power of theater and how you can transmit your thoughts and feelings without hesitation through theater. A power that you can use in the variety of ways. I structured the theatrical workshop in this way. First, I played a simple piece of theater as an introduction to the main theme of the workshop. It is a monologue, and I used the monologue to make link with the theme, with the theme, what I want to say or what I want to work with them. Then the children had the opportunity to react on the performance with their personality, opinion, and question and stories. After that, we played different movement games, first as warming up, exercise, and Gradually, I let the children experience different basic emotions such as fear, anger, sadness, and happiness. And I also let them experiment with improvisation. Towards the end of the workshop series, we start creating small scenes with text, movement, and singing too. And I try to let them know how to use feeling, but how to use feeling in theater, but too how to use feeling in the real life, and how they can control their feeling in the real life, but with theater. So this is small about what we did, me and Brigitte.
Yes, and I also wanted to say that I hope that you saw the subtitles in the movie, because I couldn't see it very clearly. Okay, that's good. But then the transformation that Hussein was talking about, it was very beautiful to see it in front of our eyes. Also, Hussein, during the project, he was making a theater piece itself, and we could see the posters hanging in the city when we were walking towards the palace from Krasvi that way. So yeah, I think this community work has a lot of value for us in the palace, because a lot of these obstructions are thrown down, actually. And I'm wondering towards you all if you also have or this story, or the problem of reaching target groups, or is this something recognizable for you as organizations? That's one of my questions. And what is your answer to that? I don't know if it's possible to raise hands here in Zoom, but otherwise maybe you can react in Slido, and then we can answer the questions now, I think.
Thank you, Brechtje and Hussein, for your presentation. There will be a possibility to discuss more in a World Cafe style discussion, which will start at 2 p.m. And now I have received a question for you about your project. So I will ask you, how does your work influence young people in art and also in their life? What do you think?
You take this, Hussein, or do I?
You can. Yeah,
Well, since Rauda and Khaled, these Palestinian children, are now taking these theater classes, we go and pick them up every week. So we see the evolution in them, and they are proud to play theater. Actually, they were playing already a little bit of theater when they were living in Palestine. So I think, yeah, it has a big impact on their lives, but also on ours. It's also part of this equality thing that I was talking about before, that's sharing experiences in real life.
It's true, and two, it is theater, you know it. It is everywhere. It is not only in Belgium. It is in Slovakia, or in Iraq. Theater, it is not for everyone. A lot of family, a lot of poor family, of religion family, they believe theater, it is not for us. Theater, it is something, we say it in Islam, haram. So this is really so difficult. But you try to bring these children and to let them believe theater, it is something useful. You can do something beautiful with it, and it can help you to with your normal life. I think this is big challenge, and we get that. We get these targets with Hit Palace to try to change the mind for these children, to let them see theater in another way, in more beautiful way and more useful way for them, I mean.
You are absolutely right, Hussein. because I'm also working in Slovakia in theater workshops with children, and I know what does it mean for their future and their life, because the explaining the emotions and all the things in theater is very free, and it brings freedom to their life. So I absolutely agree with you. And I have here one message for you and Brechtje. I just want to read it, that it is Brechtje and Hussein, you are an amazing team and a lovely co-workers. So someone sent you this message. I hope that you know who is it. And thank you very much for your presentation. It was really nice. I cross the fingers for you, for your work with the children, because I know it has a lot of benefits for them, also for their future. Thank you very much. We will see after together at 2 p.m. in a World Style Cafe discussion. And now we are going to last presentation, which will be from Serbia, from Nebojša Milikić, from the Culture Center Rex, situated in Serbia. Nebojša Milikić is a culture worker and producer who lives and works in Belgrade, Serbia. Since 1990, he is engaged in political activism, organization, artistic and curatorial practice, as visual and relation arts, independent research, public debate, and critic writing about culture and political problems of transitional societies. So I would like to welcome Nebojša with his presentation, How to Share the Experience of Improbability.
Thank you for inviting me. Many regards to the people that are present. Congratulations. Many people appears in this Zoom time. It's hard to gather people, but also there are good parts of good points of Zoom communication. For my generation, this is something like being again able to have these endless telephone conversations, you know, like, which were very important before mobiles appear. Okay, so I'm working in Cultural Center X in Belgrade already for more than 20 years. And the point of my presentation will be the project that we launched, let's say, 15 years ago or so, or more, or 2002-3. In fact, we wanted to discuss the problems that we had as a project organizers and realizers, in which we simply ran into obstacles and had problems that we couldn't expect, and that proved to be quite damaging for both the project planned aims and for also our, let's say, self-confidence and our understanding of our own work. So this is I will share screen now. This is the project's website. The project is called Mission Less Probable. We also noticed that not few of our colleagues, especially from non-government organizations engaged in cultural production, had and also have today, and probably will have in the future, similar projects. And this is the discrepancy between the goal or the mission of the project, even of the organization, and the outcome. So just to I mean, there are many examples, and now why I want to play for you now the video of one address, the recording of one address of one MP in Parliament of Croatia, because somehow all of the troubles that I will describe in short during the we will stop a video from time to time, are somehow interconnected and somehow produce some logic in which we can see like the general conditions of problems that we encountered and that we encounter even today. So can you please play the video, and then I will translate.
Evo, gledatelji i gledateljice pred malim ekranima vjerojatno su slušajući ovu raspravu o poticanju ulaganja pitali se zašto nama nije bolje. Vladajući oporba više manje unisono ponavljaju iste imperative, mjere, političke poteze koji su navodno potrebni da postanemo konkurentni, produktivni, da dostignemo najrazvijenije zemlje. Tko je iz oporbe? Ajmo dignite ruku, molim vas, protiv mjera vladajućih koji su donijeli 3 prethodne izmjene zakona. Recimo, tko je protiv mjere za projekte ulaganja u gospodarsko aktiviranje neaktivne državne imovine, poticanje ulaganja u centre za razvoj informacijsko-komunikacijskih sustava i softvera, projekte ulaganja mikropoduzetnika? Tko je protiv kada kažu vladajući pojednostavljenja i unapređenja postojećih sustava poticajnih mjera za projekte ulaganja? Tko je protiv uvođenja potpore za modernizaciju poslovnih procesa, automatizacije, robotizacije, digitalizacije proizvodnih procesa u proizvodno-prerađivačkim aktivnostima? Je li neko protiv ovih prijedloga izmjena zakona s 3 dodatne poticajne mjere pomoći u gospodarstvu u COVID krizi možda? Od oporbe smo pak čuli kako je svjesna da je potrebno povećati investicije, ulaganja, potaknuti proizvodnju, no politike privrednog razvoja nisu bitno drugačije. Istovremeno, naše zaostajanje je konstantno, bez obzira tko bio na vlasti. A sitne razlike više se odnose na refleksiju općih, globalnih, dakle, ekonomskih kretanja, znači, nego kriza i konjunktura, znači smjene, nego što je rezultat neke autonomne politike vladajućih. Navodni uspjesi višegodišnje stope umjerenog rasta ekonomije, fiskalne konsolidacije, smanjenje javnog duga o kojima vladajući često govore, nisu naravno...
Okay, thank you. Now I share with you one of our projects. For example, this was the discussion with the Anti-Fascist Association. It was established in 2003-4, I think, because in fact the entire government, all governing parties, like all governing parties in Croatia, were agreeing about the basic economic programs. Here all governing parties agreed about the necessity to annihilate, demonize, forget, or at least obscure the capacity of anti-fascist struggle in the Second World War in former Yugoslavian countries. So they were established in order to defend this legacy and to resist contemporary development of fascistoid or fascist ideas through relying on that tradition. But today, they almost do not exist. Okay, let's go on with Katarina's speech. Can you play it further, please?
A koji odbacuje, pa i zabranjuje. Evo, gledatelji i gledateljice pred malim ekranima, vjerojatno slušajući ovu raspravu o poticanju ulaganja, pitali se zašto su sada itekako razvijene u procesu razvoja koristile.
Before, at third minute, for example.
Ne odgovaraju niti.
Okay, now she speaks about the parameters, the methodology which government used to claim that there is some sort of development.
Evo, gledatelji i gledateljice pred malim ekranima, vjerojatno su slušajući ovu raspravu o poticanju ulaganja pitali se zašto nama nije bolje. Vladajući oporba više manje unisono ponavljaju iste imperative, mjere, političke poteze, rezultat neke autonomne...
Or go to 4th or 5th minute now.
Evo,
anyway, I will retell you, it's not that complicated. So she asks government, according to
gledatelji i gledateljice pred malim ekranima, vjerojatno su slušajući ovu raspravu o poticanju ulaganja, pitali se zašto nama nije bolje. Vladajući oporba više manje.
Okay, stop it, please. Okay, so what is she talking about later is like how at all government could come up with conclusions of some past development or future development when there's no any analysis of economic measures that are undertaken that far, or analysis of any theoretical, let's say, background of measures that are going to be undertaken that could promise some sort of development. So the second project that I will present from our Mission Less Probable series, we discussed the situation in one former factory in Ljubljana, which is called Rog. It produced bicycles, beautiful bicycles. Even today, you can find probably in half of Yugoslavia using them. And it was, of course, destroyed through transition and privatized and then totally destroyed in a very, very routinized methodology. And in fact, it was a place of culture. So in fact, if you know Trans-Europe Halls, it's like the place where like culture should replace the former industrial sites. And what happens today, only a few months ago, this factory is taken by the capitalists, and it will be turned in some very fancy, who knows, shopping center, etc. The next analysis was about the immigrant policy in Norway. One artist from Norway made a movie, which was a sort of fake documentary about Norwegian Ministry for Immigration asking immigrants not to come to Norwegia, and then showing some sort of bad image of Norwegia in Norway, you know, like, do not come here, it's bad for you, etc., etc. Now we see how the entire immigrant policy of European Union collapsed after that, what is called the migration crisis, which is not a crisis of migration, it is crisis of politics that addresses migration. So there is the analysis of the project in Romania, in which local NGO, cultural NGO was involved in like a revitalization of life in some suburb, but very nice suburb, very well planned. I would say the top architecture, even in Switzerland, you wouldn't find it, especially not where flats were given for free. But then it was like some sort of, this is something not bad, but like this is bad heritage, like socialist architecture, you know, depersonalized, blah, like totalitarian, and then let's improve the mentality of, or not mentality, but let's say let's revive it with culture, you know, like, and etc., etc. Now here is former actor in pre-Second World War theater in Belgrade, very famous actor, who in fact continued to act even when in Radio Belgrade 23 hours of program were in German, because Radio Belgrade served entire Nazi war machinery from Egypt to Stalingrad. And 23 hours were in German, and there was 1 hour in Serbian, and in that 1 hour, this famous actor was playing comedy, you know. After war, of course, she was stripped of civil rights, etc., etc., and now she's a victim. She's a victim of communism, and the main reward for young female actors is named after her. Then the work by Hungarian artist, Wish Your Dirty Money with My Art, that addresses the problem that one Swiss specialist, in fact, here is his stencil that he made graffitis on some exhibition space. I don't remember quite well. But also there was one specialist from Swiss, you know, brought here probably by Pro Helvetia, I don't remember. And then everybody gathers here, say like, okay, now we will finally, you know, develop this art market, everything, you know, private capitalists will buy our art, you know, they will help us, our noble intentions in culture and art. And then he said, never, never rely on private money if you want to do a serious art and culture. It was very interesting. Anyway, work by Tanja Ostojic about impossible integration in Germany, etc. So, I mean, this is not even the half of the discussions that we had, but why I'm showing on this next to the video of Katarina's speech in Croatian Parliament that I would call, probably I'm not that, even in a region, I'm not that much, but never heard some speech like that. It is like analysis of economical background of the collapse of Croatian economy. and a huge social stratification, etc. And by the way, Katarina is a cultural worker, former cultural worker. She is also professor in the university in Rijeka, but it's very interesting. She worked in independent culture. So what I wanted to say is that this is my, can I share screen again? Am I sharing it? Yeah. Can you please share my screen? Is it shared? I don't see.
Yes, Nebojša, it's actually shared your screen.
Do you see a big photo with some letters? I don't see it.
There is written past debates.
No. I need to share screen, new share. Okay. New share, new share is, but where is my screen now? Maybe this. Yes. Do you see now photos?
Yes.
Do you see photo? You see it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. So what is the point of this mission less probable project? The unease of writing report after reading the project proposal. So when we have to write report about our project, we read project proposal so to see how our plans match to our outcomes. And then there is always this unease, unheimlich in German, you know, like that Freud discovered this sort of a small shame, you know, we were so ambitious with the goals and then the outcomes are not that good. So in a way, what I'm doing this in checking Janka's and Robert's again at that, if you remember from yesterday's presentation, through Hannah's and Natalia's mission evaluation bullet points. So if you forgot them, these are ones. What is our mission? Who is our customer? Yes, we have customers, project applicants in non-profit sector. We tend to sell our projects to donors. What does the customer user? So these big 5 points is something that according to which I judge about Janka's and Robert's agenda, if you remember from yesterday's presentation, doesn't matter. So how comes that beautiful plans from project proposal end up in depressing negotiations with truth when we write reports about the project realization? For example, introduction of human rights agenda in many project goals and aims, but minus socioeconomic rights. Most of the projects in that situation are guided, inspired, and explained by that transition, whatever it is. And now we are into informality. The transition is only informally debated and explained. No one formally and to say mathematically explains what is transition at all. So in the end, the examples that I presented from the project, our debates, are bringing us to this. Historical revisionism idealizes capitalism and connects working rights and socialist welfare state standards with totalitarianism, in the same time divorcing the fascism from capitalism. Deindustrialization destabilizes living standard, developmental perspective, educational and cultural capacities and ambitions of society, and especially working class, reduces the entire economy to status of dependent, peripheral, auxiliary economy, etc., etc. I will not go further, but from the examples that we analyzed, you can make a sort of a sum up all that effects, and you will get what we have today in most of Eastern European countries. So why I'm putting this in this idyllic landscape, it is because this is how the transition was introduced through some idyllic narrative, you know. So I can also say that this is like the dawn of enlightenment, you know, but also somebody can say that it is a dusk. If we don't know where we are, we don't know if it is dawn or dusk. I could also take this image, you know, but this is disturbing, or this one, this is depressing. So the one is like idyllic representation, but the outcomes we see there. So this is the second speech by Katarina. And this speech, you have it here. I will not go through it too much. Also, only from the promises of government. What is government doing? Bringing some...
I am sorry, excuse me. I have to stop you because the time, and because we have received a question for you. So I would like to ask you this question. Okay. And after we go forward to the discussion when you can continue with our participants. Okay. So the question for you is, what would be an ideal way of collaborating between politicians and cultural workers?
Which politicians?
It's not specified here. Maybe imagine it in your country.
Well, if you ask me, who was totally pro-transition and even pro-capitalism, to say like in this naive, like juvenile, infantile way, in socialism, cultural infrastructure was something that in capitalism, at least in peripheral countries, you can only dream on. Every village had sort of a house of culture, library, regular cultural activities, etc. Now that all disappeared. So what to say to politicians? Invest in culture, they will say, go to market, go earn money on the market. So which politicians? You know? Katarina, you can check her profile and you will see how the serious, it is not even, I mean, it's stupid to call it leftist politics. It is democracy. It is the interest of the majority of people to have access to infrastructure. I mean, I've heard it also in Francois' lecture this morning, from which I remember my favorite part is like, you cannot plan the outcome of cultural artistic project, which is exactly what the donors ask from us. You know, like this is what we all have to promise and to plan and to know in advance how our project will improve this or improve that. You know, like it's a, and this is what Katarina in this second speech calls auto-suggestion. You know, like if you will, you do. There's no any rational argument, but like ideology drives you. So if you explain which politicians, I would be able to answer. Otherwise, I can talk like this, you know, not too much, not too productive.
For your answer, and also for your presentation. And please stay with us in a World Cafe style discussion. Now I have to say thank you for all our external participants which were watching us on YouTube, Facebook and A4 TV. If you want to share your feelings or ideas with us, you can do it at A4 website and fill the Google form and write us your feedback. We will be very happy to read it. And also you have the possibility to see all the presentation at A4 TV on YouTube also after the seminar. So if you were interested in some, there will be still possible and available for you in A4 TV. So just for external participants, I now would like to say a big thank you for watching us and hope to see you soon in a cultural events of A4 in virtual or in live. We will see what's happened. And for internal participants, please stay with us in a Zoom. We will continue with World Cafe style discussion. After 1 minute break, we will continue. So looking forward to see you and to discuss. And thanks a lot to our external participants for watching.